Morse at the Hopkinsville location.
We can help you take that family vacation you've been dreaming about.
At ABC Finance, we provide loans up to $15,000.
We are locally owned and staffed, and decisions are made quickly, usually within an hour.
No appointment is needed. Walk-ins are welcome.
You can even give us a call and we will take your application over the phone.
Or you can apply online at abcfinanceonline.com.
And like us on Facebook.
ABC Finance in Hopkinsville on Fort Campbell Boulevard next to O'Charlie's and in Princeton Plaza. ABC Finance. All loans subject to normal credit approval.
They say variety is the spice of life. We all want choices. Men and women want to pick what they want. When it's time to select that special truck, Trice Hughes in Princeton has the variety. 3 brands to choose from: Chevrolet, GMC, and Ram. Whether you're a farmer, whether you're pulling a camper with your favorite person, or whether you just want to drive a truck, Trice Hughes in Princeton has your truck. Stop by and pick out your truck today.
Find them on Highway 91 North Princeton or at tricehughes.com.
Life is filled with moments. Moments we share with those we love, worry about, and strive to protect the most. At Woodman Life, we provide life insurance and retirement products to help protect you and your family so that you can enjoy all the moments to come.
This is Josh Ray, your local Woodman Life agent. Come see us at 1009 West Main Street or give us a call at 365-6111.
Certain eligibility and age restrictions apply. Woodman of the World Life Insurance Society, Omaha, Nebraska.
Imagine this. It's late at night, it's cold and dark, and you have a flat tire. One never knows when old Bessie's gonna cause you problems. There's only one place to call: Wallace Towing and Recovery in Princeton. Wallace Towing and Recovery is a 24/7 towing and recovery service. You can count on Wallace Towing and Recovery to get you safe and back on the road or to a repair shop. Wallace Towing and Recovery will jumpstart your vehicle, change a tire, deliver gas, unlock a door, or haul it to the garage or scrapyard. Wallace Towing and Recovery has you covered in Princeton and surrounding areas. Call Wallace Towing and Recovery. Check them out on Facebook, and when you need a tow or roadside help, call Wallace Towing and Recovery at 270-963-9081.
This is Alan Watts with Your Ag Edge, inviting you to join me Monday through Friday at 5:30 a.m. for the WPKY Morning Ag Report. We check in daily with Caldwell County Agriculture Extension Agent Shane Bogle. Get the latest from fellow farm broadcaster Max Armstrong. Take a look at the latest livestock market reports. Hear the latest edition of Traveling the Bluegrass and check the opening grain market with Hopkins Elevators' Ben Westerfield. That's the Morning Ag Report from Your Ag Edge Network on 103.3 FM and 1580 AM WPKY.
It's time for your SportsEdge.com Sideline Report with Todd Griffin. Talking sports and more here on 1580, 103.3 WPKY and worldwide at WPKYonline.com. Here's your host, Todd Griffin.
Good morning. We are off and running with the Sideline Report from 1035 West Main Street in Princeton. This is Todd Griffin in the WPKY studios. Got another big show lined up for everyone this week on the Sideline Report. First of all, Gary Goodacre joining us in the studio this morning. Gary, thanks for coming in and being on the show again today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And joining us on the telephone, actually, this is a first for the Sideline Report. We're actually a wake-up call this morning for Chris George. Chris, where are you at today?
Well, I am calling in from the 40th floor of Caesar's Palace.
Wow.
In Vegas. So, yeah, not many people I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning for on the West Coast.
There's probably people going to bed right now.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that Las Vegas was in the Pacific time zone until we tried to work this out. And I'm like, wow, Chris is going to be up at 6:15.
Yeah, I think Las Vegas, I think Nevada as a state kind of weird. I think half the year they're Pacific time zone and half the year they're Mountain time zone. It's like really weird.
All right, we've got Gary and Chris on the show today. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk sports here on the Sideline Report. Stay with us at 1580, 103.3 WPKY.
Get into shape and feel good at Trilogy Performance Sports. Trilogy offers a wide range of family-friendly classes as well as personal training, yoga, gymnastics, sports training, cardio, and weightlifting. Trilogy has something for everyone. Trilogy now offers an app with online workouts, live classes, nutrition tracking, and more. Search Trilogy Performance Sports in your app store. Use sign-up code 1824. For app info and more, follow them on Facebook.
Get ready for back to school with Health First Community Health Center, offering physicals, immunizations, ADHD treatment, and well child, sick child visits. At Health First, we offer affordable, quality health care for the entire family. We accept K-CHIP, Medicaid, Medicare, and all major commercial insurance. A discount program is available based on income and household size. Call today to make your appointment at 1-877-667-7017.
There's still a lot of summer weather left, you know, and at the Joshua Tree Boutique in Princeton, new summer merchandise is still arriving. Stop in and visit and get ready for summer vacation, reunions, or back to school with beautiful classic fashions for ladies of all ages. The summer sale has started with 25% off. Some exclusions do apply. The Joshua Tree Boutique is not your everyday boutique. It's truly unique. The Joshua Tree Boutique, 110 East Court Street in historic downtown Princeton.
Gary Goodacre and Chris George are with us on the Sideline Report this morning. Forgot to mention when we first came on that we do have a top 5 for you today, so everybody hang on for that. But big news yesterday coming out of the media days for the Southeastern Conference, and that's a report that the University of Texas and Oklahoma are both trying to get into the Southeastern Conference. And Gary, that kind of took me by surprise.
I bet it took Texas A&M by surprise.
For sure.
That was definitely the impetus for them going to the SEC, was to leave Texas behind and make their own footprint. So I think this is the beginning of the end for the NCAA when it comes to football.
Well, Chris, what was kind of your take when you first heard that?
Well, after a little bit of the shock wore off, I began to text with a couple of my UK football buddies, one being a familiar Princeton named Joey Randolph, and we were trying to figure it out as to what is the what's the reason, and it's got to be for Texas that the Longhorn Network is just not working, and they need to make that work. And a buddy of ours from Louisville named Mike Fields was saying that he thinks it is a last-ditch effort by Texas to force the Big 12 to try to do some type of network since their Longhorn Network isn't working. To me, I don't particularly understand it because Oklahoma has a guaranteed shot at the playoff just about every year in the Big 12. And if they come to the SEC, good luck. So, and I think it's just helping SEC recruiting for the other schools if Texas is in the SEC. So for both of them, I don't understand, except it's maybe money driven for both of them. But I'm like Gary, at the beginning of the end, if it was to happen, you know, you got a 16-team super conference now. Both schools help the SEC in football and basketball. Also help the SEC in women's basketball with Texas and baseball with Texas. So win-win for the SEC.
Well, this to me is where the SEC would be able to package 16 teams, make their own deals with whomever, not just television. They've got NIL possibilities with this, with tie-ins, and you could get to the point where you could almost say the real champion is out of this 16. We don't have to play anybody else. And I think that the money is so amazing that could flow through these 16 schools that, in essence, everyone else would become second tier.
But are there other, if you're thinking of expansion, Gary, and you're the SEC, are there other teams that are more attractive than those two?
Maybe so, but
you don't need either one of them for your TV broadcasting footprint.
That's why they're asking. That's why they are making the impetus, because they probably believe there are two other teams that would be more attractive. And maybe if they get ahead of the game, they realize that the two other teams may be more attractive, and they want to kind of be, we're first, let's go. So I think they're pushing the envelope for that exact reason.
Well, here's the question, though. Is this just the first domino? Is it going to be a 16-team super conference? Is it going to be a 20-team? Is it going to be 24? At some point, you're thinking, well, the Southeastern Conference can just branch off and become its own league. We've seen professional sports leagues with only 8 teams, and they make a go of it. You know, if you had 20 teams or 24 teams, you could play it entirely inside your conference schedule. Think of the rights fees for that. If every game is an SEC contest, you write your own check then.
You're keeping all the money.
Yeah. And it always comes back to money.
One thing about this is there are some quality ACC teams. Clemson comes to mind immediately. Others that have been historically good may not be good right now, or vice versa. The 24 or even 32-team super conference concept could be financially viable, but I think you have to get to 16 to start making a model, and then you decide how far you want to go with it, because you're looking probably at a super conference wanting to do at least an 8-team playoff, but then you could get greedy and go to 12. Well, if you want a 12-team playoff, you need more than a 16-team league, because you don't want to play a whole season to eliminate 4 teams. So I think this is simply the first domino of how to make the true super conference that's maybe even beyond the SEC. But the only viable partner I see to that would be an Ohio State and a Clemson. There's a few, but then you're breaking up conferences. How many people would be willing to jump out of their conference? We know there's at least 2, but would Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan, and those players be willing to do so as well?
Well, let's throw a Notre Dame in there, too.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's, I think what you just spoke of, Gary, I believe you would then see teams within the conference begin to make alliances to keep other people out. I could see Texas A&M working with the South Carolina. If you help us keep Texas out, we'll help you keep Clemson. We'll get our allies to help you keep Clemson out. So I think it's going to have to be something, teams and schools that everybody can kind of mutually agree on that's not going to hurt them. I could definitely see a Michigan. I could see a North Carolina, because I don't think anybody would really care about them. I definitely think Texas A&M is going to care about Oklahoma and Texas, and South Carolina will probably be turning flip of a fit to keep Clemson out.
Well, a couple of things when you're talking about Texas. The University of Texas is such a behemoth that, even though technically you don't add another state to your footprint, you do add millions of potential viewers to a network by getting the Longhorns involved. Plus, I mean, you're talking billions of dollars in a university that would join your league. So I think anybody would take Texas if they could make it work out. But another thing, for years we always heard there was a gentleman's agreement in the SEC that schools would not vote to bring in a second team from a state, that the other ADs and schools would help them keep out, which is why you don't have Louisville in the SEC. That's why Clemson isn't in the SEC, because South Carolina. It's why Georgia Tech won't ever come back to the SEC, why you don't have Florida State, Miami, those teams. So, but the reports I saw last night said that Texas A&M would probably balk at bringing in Texas, and Missouri might as well from a competitive standpoint, but that they need 11 of 14 to say yes, and that it looks like they might have the 11 to do that. So,
oh wow!
So that would be interesting.
That alliances could come into play. You're a Texas A&M, and you call up the AD and president at South Carolina and say Clemson can be next, and if you don't help us, we're not going to help you. Same thing to the Florida AD.
Right.
Florida State could be next. If you don't help us, we're not going to help you.
So can you find 4 schools to block it?
I could even see a call going into Barnhart and saying, hey, Ohio State might want in next. You all don't want them in.
Because you've been so fertile in recruiting Ohio that you don't want that to be your...
You don't want that, so you better help me. I mean, I'm telling you how I would handle it. If I was A&M, I would be calling 3 or 4 other ADs and say, you could be the next one that's got an issue with somebody coming in. You better have my back.
And then you call the accountants and find out what piece of the pie you're neglecting to take with this. And then you have to look at that and go, well, we may get a smaller piece, but of a ridiculously larger pie. And then you have to go, wait a minute, a 20th of this X is a whole lot bigger than a 14th of this Y, and X and Y are both huge. So maybe you just look at money and go, well, the money's too good.
But you think if you're A&M, you would naturally think their allies in the SEC are Missouri and Arkansas. So you may only need to pull one other school, like a South Carolina or a Florida, to make sure the 11 votes aren't available. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a lot of chess games going on that probably already are.
Yeah, you know, when I first saw the report, I thought maybe it was just a rogue report from somebody trying to maybe make a name for themselves. But the more you dig on it, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire, or vice versa, whatever that saying is, you know. So I think there's probably something to this. There's also a report that Texas A&M was the school that leaked all this originally to try to get ahead of it and maybe put the brakes on it. But I think Texas A&M was in the University of Texas' shadow for a long time, and they finally got out of it in the SEC. But if Texas were in the SEC, that would kind of bring back a big rivalry between those two schools. And again, you'd have that all in the SEC. The big question, though, that keeps coming to my mind: how does this affect the University of Kentucky? You know, from a football standpoint, it's already tough enough to compete. You know, you're looking at Georgia and LSU and Tennessee and Florida and Alabama and those schools. Do you really want Texas and Oklahoma coming to join the party too?
But the paradigm's going to change. What's going to happen is we're competing, but for what? Now, I think if you have this super conference, let's say you get 16 teams and the top 8 make a playoff, Kentucky can reasonably be in the top half. Just getting the 8 seed in an SEC 3-round extravaganza would be hundreds of millions of dollars. And if you just make the top 8 in my theoretical, there's 16 teams in the SEC, the top 8 make the playoff, the money there would be so astronomical, you'd probably go, hey, top half is an accomplishment.
Well, to me,
go ahead, Chris.
It's a competitive standpoint kind of thing. One, who from the West has to come to the East?
Yeah, that would be kind of tricky.
Because both of those are West teams. So 2 of those West teams have to come East. Do the Mississippis come East? I don't necessarily hate that.
Arkansas, because if Missouri is, you can make a claim to Arkansas. I know they want to be tied to LSU, but they border Missouri, so I think you could pretty easily move Arkansas.
So you don't split the Mississippis, because if one Mississippi comes, the other Mississippi has to come. So if you take Arky, who's the other one you take? I mean, because LSU is clearly a West school.
Well, you'd only have to move one, wouldn't you? Because you have 7 in the East, you just move 1 to the East, and you have 8 and 8.
Okay.
You only have to move 1. So Arkansas could do it.
Yeah, fun to think about. And, I read a lot about this last night, probably stayed up too late researching it, but I thought it was a fascinating topic, and again, kind of caught me off guard to see Texas and Oklahoma potentially headed to the SEC.
If you only add those 2, I think it makes Kentucky even stronger, because now we're still going into a fertile Ohio, and if no one else adds, you just have more of an enticement to get those players down here.
Well, we could probably talk about this all day, and I would, but we got to move on with the show, and I neglected to mention when we first came on, we have a top 5 today. It's our top 5 favorite sports movies of all time, and we're going to run through those when we come back here on the Sideline Report on 1580, 103.3 WPKY.
Your WPKY Weather Edge Weather Center forecast is brought to you by Cozy Living Interiors and Boutique.
From the Weather Edge Weather Center, patchy fog for the morning hours, otherwise areas of smoke possible today. Mostly sunny skies with a high temperature up to 89 degrees. There is an air quality alert in effect. For today. Haze in the evening hours and mostly clear. Overnight low 67. Sunshine on Friday and Saturday. Friday's high 89. Saturday's high 91 degrees. We're holding steady at 69 degrees, light fog scattered around the area.
They say variety is the spice of life. We all want choices. Men and women want to pick what they want. When it's time to select that special truck, Trice Hughes in Princeton has the variety. 3 brands to choose from: Chevrolet, GMC, and Ram. Whether you're a farmer, whether you're pulling a camper with your favorite person, or whether you just want to drive a truck, Trice Hughes in Princeton has your truck. Stop by and pick out your truck today.
Find them on Highway 91 North Princeton or at tricehughes.com.
Goodwin Insurance Agency and Woodall Agency have great news. Effective January 1st, they have joined forces to provide even more options for all your insurance needs. Together, they provide the best prices and coverage from top-rated insurance companies and insure all lines of insurance. See Tori Hammett or Fred Foltz, or go to insurewithgoodwin.com for more information. Don't pay too much for your insurance. Let them shop for you and save today.
We are back on the Sideline Report on 1580, 103.3 WPKY. Chris George and Gary Goodacre on the show with us this morning. As promised, we do have a top 5, our top 5 favorite sports movies of all time, and we'll try to run through these pretty quickly. We did do our top 5 favorite baseball movies, I think, earlier this year, so might be a little crossover, but I'm going to start with my number 5, and first of all, this was really difficult to pin these down to 5, and I changed my mind about 10 times on this. Also, first, I never got a ruling on Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He spends the entire movie trying to get his bike back. You know, is that a sports movie or not? But we'll move on. I'm going to go with The Longest Yard, the original with Burt Reynolds, who played quarterback Paul Crewe. And I've probably seen that movie at least 1 million times so far, Gary.
That's a good movie. And the remake wasn't terrible, but the original is better.
The original is the original.
It's true. My number 5 is more for what it represents than the movie itself. Although I like the movie, it's Miracle. I've always been fascinated by the 1980 Miracle on Ice team, and I was really impressed that they decided to get skaters who could act over actors who could skate a little. That it did make the scenes a little bit better.
That was actually on my didn't quite make the list. All right, Chris, you're number 5.
So I need a ruling before I go on. Does
Okay.
a documentary
What's that?
Does a documentary count?
Yes, we're good with that.
All right, so that changes my list.
Okay.
My number 5 is Hoop Dreams.
Okay.
The original from, 1990s?
Yeah, the
Oh,
Hoop
yeah,
Dreams following 2 kids in Chicago.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so that's everybody's number 5. We'll roll right on to number 4, and, you know, I kind of debated about this movie too, but I quote this movie so often. If you've ever been on a golf course, you've quoted this movie 10 times. So I've got to put Caddyshack on here, and, you know, Ted Knight and Rodney Dangerfield are just absolutely the best. So I've got Caddyshack at number 4.
Well, that was my number 4 as well, so I'll go ahead and just basically keep people from waiting.
Wow.
Get you.
And we did not discuss this
We
either.
did not discuss that. But I can't count how many times I've been in a meeting and in my head that quote comes through. Well, we're waiting.
We're waiting.
That's my code right there.
All right, Chris, how about your number 4?
Number 4 for me was Hoosiers. I
All right.
mean, that's the only thing good about Indiana, in the state of Indiana and basketball is the movie Hoosiers.
Well, and Hoosiers, though, can be taken by anybody that grew up playing basketball and dreaming of winning a high school state championship. You know, I don't think it's necessarily just an Indiana movie. I think if you, especially for a Kentucky kid growing up, you kind of relate to that movie. And it is a great movie. As a matter of fact, I've got it on my list someplace. You know, spoiler alert. But anyway,
It almost made mine, but I had to cut it. It almost.
Well, you know, I have rules, Todd, and when we do a list, it is if I come across it on the DVR guide, am I going to stop it and watch it? That's how I begin to that's how I start my list when I do my research.
Oh yeah.
And Hoosiers is one of those. I'm going to stop and watch it.
And I've seen Hoosiers at least 1 billion times as well. But moving on to number 3, my number 3 is Rocky. With all due respect to Rambo, Rocky is the essential Sylvester Stallone role, an iconic character. You know, to me, Rocky Balboa is a real person, you know. when you're watching Rocky Balboa and you see that Adrian died and he's at the grave, I mean, you feel like there's a substantial loss there, that's real. I mean, for all intents and purposes for me, Rocky is a real person. That's how much time we've spent through all the movies with Rocky Balboa.
Well, and now the Rocky franchise has been introduced to a new generation through the Creed movies.
Oh, yeah. It's never going to end.
Why should it?
It's like the scene in the movie Spaceballs where he says, Sylvester Stallone stars in Rocky 3000. So, okay. Gary, you're number 3.
I'm going to cheat because I basically think they're somewhat of the same movie because they came out so close together. But of my generation, I guess I was too immature in my 20s. I'm going to call it Happy Gilmore / Waterboy.
All right.
Because basically, I have far too many videos in my head of scenes from both those movies. And any movie where Bob Barker beats somebody up is good for me. So, but they came out right when I was in college, and they got too many quotable lines.
Happy Gilmore was originally number 5 on my list. I actually had to bump it. You know how much that hurt my feelings to bump Happy Gilmore? But
go get a delicious Subway sandwich and you'll be fine.
All right, Chris, we're up to your number 3.
Number 3, I think it's going to come out of left field, but once again, it's a classic, and it's one that defines a generation, and it's The Karate Kid.
Oh, yeah. I thought about that movie as well. Oh, and just before we go any further, I think the scene in Spaceballs was Rocky 5000. I can't remember exactly. I didn't want somebody to text me later and say I messed it up, although I may have messed it up twice now. But anyway, we're not talking sci-fi this morning. We're talking sports, so I don't really have my mind on the Spaceballs. But we're up to number 2, and it's Hoosiers. You've got your Gene Hackman, your Barbara Hershey. What more do you need for a movie? It's great. Hoosiers.
Dennis
and
Hopper.
basketball.
Dennis Hopper.
And you have
Yeah,
Dennis Hopper. So
it's awesome.
That did it.
To me, I always kind of judge a sports movie on how realistic the scenes are, the sports scenes. And I always thought Hoosiers did a pretty good job of making the basketball scenes look pretty realistic. So, number 2 for me is Hoosiers.
Well, my number 2 has Paul Newman, but you'll never guess.
Really?
Yes.
Are you going Slapshot?
No, I'm not.
Oh, wow.
I'm a father, and of my kids, Cars. I'm counting Cars because my children, all 3 of them, loved it. It has racing. That's a sport. And it just defined all those moments when they were little boys and having their little cars. But there's a lot of good in the movie, especially to me, the part where you go in the Hudson Hornets garage and all those Piston Cup trophies are there, but once he got washed up and wrecked, nobody cared about him anymore. So I'm always able to tell my children, people will sometimes only, basically care about you when you're useful, and the moment you're not useful, you're out the door.
I was not expecting Cars to make the list today.
I got you there.
No, not at all.
All right, Chris, you're number 2.
Number 2 was number 1 on my baseball list earlier this year, but I couldn't do a sports movie list without putting the soul of the game on here.
Wow. I'm going to have to watch that movie. You keep bringing it up, so I'm going to have to watch it.
You got to. You got to. If you're a baseball guy like you are, Todd, is nothing better than a movie that's talking about Satch Page, Josh Gibson, and Jackie Robinson.
Well,
you get it all. Some good acting. Delroy Lindo and Blair Underwood, you're getting some great acting as well.
Well, and I have a baseball movie, no surprise, at number 1, what I think is the underrated 8 Men Out. I'm going to keep pushing that movie and, beating that drum forever. I really enjoy that movie, and without going to, the classic scene at the end is awesome. 8 Men Out about the 1919 Chicago Black Sox and the trial afterward and all those good things. It's a good watch. So, Gary, you're number 1.
It's baseball as well, and I think it was my number 1 baseball movie, of course. I still love A League of Their Own because it fits the definition of Chris. I will stop and watch it. I have too many quotes, and I'm a historical person. I love that era, the World War II era, just the history behind it, and it was so well made and so many quotes and so meaningful, and I just think it's so many layers. There's so many layers to the movie. I will watch it once a month if I can.
Yeah, I like that movie too. All right, Chris, what's your number 1?
And Gary, League of Their Own was on my list. It got cut near the end. It was actually scratched out at number 5. But for number 1, my number 1 has already appeared, and it is the ultimate movie that if I see it in the DVR guide, the DirecTV guide, I am stopping, and that is Rocky.
All right. I wasn't sure we'd have another Rocky, but, I thought maybe somebody would throw out Rocky 4 just so we could get, the Ivan Drago thing going, but I think when you throw out Rocky, you kind of include all the Rocky movies and everything that's come after it. So, again, that's one of my favorites too.
Well, there's no easy way out with Rocky movies. There's no shortcut home.
Yeah, there is no shortcut home, Robert Tepper.
That's right.
Now I'm surprised.
My thing about the Rocky movies is I'm going to stop and watch Rocky and Rocky 2. The Rockies after that, it's almost like, what have I got going on that day? If I don't have anything going on, I'll stop and watch one of the other Rockies. But if Rocky is on and Rocky 2 is on, forget it.
Well, I am going to skip Rocky 5. I'm going to skip Rocky 5.
Okay. You have permission. That's your mulligan.
But, nobody said The Natural. That surprises me a little bit. Nobody had Rudy. Those are I also had A League of Their Own on my original list, too, so we never heard those. But I never really got a ruling on Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
For a bunch of football guys, I'm surprised we didn't get a Friday Night Lights. And I had it on my original top 5, and it was bumped at the last minute once I got the ruling on Hoop Dreams.
Well, it's difficult to get it down to 5.
It is.
We could have done a top 20, but we don't have all day. But, that was fun. Our top 5s, and we still got more time. We're going to talk more sports when we come back here on the Sideline Report. Gary Goodacre and Chris George with us on the show today. Back with more after this on 1580, 103.3 WPKY.
Your WPKY Weather Edge Weather Center forecast is brought to you by Community Medical.
From the Weather Edge Weather Center, patchy fog through the morning hours, otherwise areas of smoke possible today. Mostly sunny skies with a high temperature up to 89 degrees. There is an air quality alert in effect. For today. Haze in the evening hours and mostly clear. Overnight low 67. Sunshine on Friday and Saturday. Friday's high 89. Saturday's high 91 degrees. We're holding steady at 69 degrees. Light fog scattered around the area.
Continental Mills, makers of Krusty's brand baking mixes, is looking for individuals to join them as they enhance people's lives through the power of food. They have immediate openings for full-time night shift packaging support and packaging operator positions. Enjoy a comprehensive benefits package and quarterly bonuses while working in a climate-controlled, clean environment with a workforce that's made up of talented, motivated people. Be on your way to a better job today and apply online at continentalmills.com.
It's Endless Pizza Night every Thursday night at Adams Breezy Hill Farm Restaurant. It's Pop's Pizza, and it's not just any old pizza, it's brick oven pizza. Endless pizza tonight for dinner. Enjoy a side salad, all-you-can-eat pizza, and a scoop of Pop's homemade ice cream for just $15. Get your friends together or plan a date night for Endless Pizza Night every Thursday. That's tonight at Adams Breezy Hill Farm Restaurant, 1222 Cadiz Road, Princeton. Follow them on Facebook to see tonight's featured pizza.
We are back on the Sideline Report at 1580, 103.3 WPKY. Thanks for tuning in today. Gary Goodacre and Chris George on the show. Do want to run through just a little news first, though. Emma Talley has played her first round at the Evian Championship in France. Shot a 1 over par 72 this morning, I believe the score was. And Gary, a logjam in the standings there. I think she's tied for 71st, but just one shot away from maybe 38th or so. So that's going to be a close call for her making the cut over there.
But you got a whole nother round, and at least you know what you've got to do. And like you said, with a logjam there, one good day should be enough for her.
Yeah, so hopefully she can play really well, make the cut, make a lot of money. This is a major event on the LPGA Tour, and those majors usually have a little more money that they give away. So it's always a good thing to play well there. I think Emma made just over $20,000 over there 3 years ago. So she's playing the Evian Championship in France this week, and actually teed off about 1 a.m. this morning, our time. So I think tomorrow morning it's around 5:51 our time that she'll tee off. So 7 hours ahead of us. So good luck to Emma over there. Also, if you've looked at the calendar lately, Gary, you just mentioned this off the air, we're about 2 weeks away from the first Caldwell County football scrimmage.
It's amazing because last year we did not scrimmage and we did not play till September. So this is definitely going to be back to normal time, hopefully, and looks like we are going to have to replace a lot of receivers, replace a quarterback. So we're definitely going to have to use these two scrimmages. We definitely need the two scrimmages this year for sure.
Well, looking at the schedule this year, Mayfield's going to be pretty good. Hopkinsville's going to be pretty good. So those will be two tough games the Tigers have. You look at the other end of the spectrum, Fort Campbell and Ballard Memorial are probably going to struggle a little bit. So you think maybe that's 2 wins there. The other 6 games, though, should be a lot of fun.
Well, what I'm looking for is if we can keep our lines intact, we're going to have to control the line of scrimmage and work from inside out. A lot of times we go, all right, we got the like last year with the pandemic, since we had most of our skill position people and our quarterback kind of helped us a little bit. Well, this year we definitely need the scrimmages, and we're going to work toward figuring out who those skill position players are going to be on Friday nights.
Yeah, Chris, if you look at the Tigers, it looks like the strength is up front this season.
That's not always been the case for us, that the strength is up front. But thinking about this version of this roster, I really think it's going to our success is going to start with that defensive line, because that's the unit that's returning mostly intact, and they had a good year. Unit that's got 2 legitimate college prospects on it for some college ball in Davis and Shaheen. And I think they're going to have to help us keep the score down and probably win some tight ball games playing defense. Yeah, we got to replace our linebackers, but, a good defensive front, sometimes football is a game won in the trenches, and I think we're going to have to win it in the trenches this year till we figure the quarterback situation out and hopefully solve the running back puzzle this year, which was something that plagued, I think, the Tigers, which kept them from would have taken them from good to great last year if they'd had a runner that could have taken just a little bit of pressure off of the passing game.
Well, I think you're going to see a little different look this year, and Gary, you maybe can talk about this a little bit too, that the Tigers may have to run the football this year and play defense and win games that way, which is not really what we're used to seeing from a Tiger football team, at least the last decade.
Well, we're still going to throw the ball because we are a system team, but if our offensive line holds up, I think it's going to open up screens. With inexperienced receivers, I think screens can be the way to start getting them more comfortable with the literal catching of the ball and looking for holes. Then they can progress up the field and start with 5-yard outs, 7-yard outs. We may not be throwing the 40-yard bombs we like to see, but we're going to matriculate, as a famous coach once said. And I think that misdirection and tunnel screens, we're just going to have easy throws for the first quarterback, whoever he is, easy catches for these receivers, and let our good offensive linemen that are returning hit people, and we're going to go from there.
Yeah, that first scrimmage is actually August 6th, I believe, at Tiger Stadium against Owensboro Catholic. The Tigers the next week will go to Owensboro Senior for a scrimmage. So Chris, Caldwell's going to actually see a couple of pretty decent teams in those scrimmages, and that should help get us ready for the regular season.
Yeah, I didn't know one of the scrimmages was Owensboro Senior. Oh, so we're going to get to see a top 50 recruit, a top 50 quarterback. Oh boy. That'll be an interesting quarter when he plays.
But it's a scrimmage. I think I would rather see 2 really tough teams in a scrimmage because, that doesn't hurt your record any. If you play somebody that you just kind of run up and down the field against, I'm not sure you get a whole lot out of that scrimmage. I mean, maybe in some situations you need somebody easy to gain some confidence, but, I want the scrimmages to show me what I need to work on.
Yeah. I'm not sure a young team such as this one that's got some questions, one good competitive scrimmage, but you might be biting off a little more than you can chew when you're talking about a state championship contender in Owensboro Senior. Sometimes you need to be able to get out there and work on some things, and when you're playing that kind of juggernaut, It's kind of like when teams had to play us, you're not going to get to work on much because at least I guess you will when you do the 10-play series, but down in distance, I don't know how much you're going to get to work on. Wow. Well, at least I'll get to see Winston, though, before he heads off to Rutgers.
Well, and with the regular season opening with Christian County and Madisonville North Hopkins, both of those games at home for the Tigers, the schedule looks a little daunting at first. However, Christian County has struggled lately. Madisonville was down a little bit, so I think those are two games that can be very competitive for the Tigers.
And they each have new coaches.
Christian County's in flux right now as a program. I mean, their program's just in flux.
Yeah.
Yeah, with new coaches, I think that perhaps you have a chance to get them at home before they have their true identity resolved. I mean, how many times have you seen a team get a new coach and they say, well, it's going to take us 3 or 4 games just to find out who we are? Well, let's get 2 of these teams before they find out who they are. It turns out that Christian County might be good game 8, maybe game 1. We can punch them in the mouth and hit them with some stuff that they're not used to. And then they're going to see our scrimmage videos, and maybe they think they can do more than they actually can.
Well, the Tigers struggled a little bit down at 7-on-7 last week, but, you know, the purist in me always says, well, if there's no blocking and there's no tackling, it's hard to get a good read on how much football we're seeing. So I think that was just a case of having the inexperience at quarterback and the inexperience at receivers. I like to think if the Tigers had their line there and had, you know, their starting running back there, that they probably would have won a couple of those games and been very competitive in the others.
And a D-line to pressure their quarterback.
Yes.
I mean, their quarterback was not receiving any pressure, and all the quarterbacks who we face hopefully are going to face pressure from the D-line and perhaps a linebacker coming up. So they're not going to have all that time.
So that's going to
Do
be
we
fun
have
to watch.
do we have a target at running back right now?
I would say Logan Smiley is probably going to be the starting running back, at least as of right now. So we'll just kind of see where that goes. He brings some speed to the backfield, so maybe has that little extra burst that, you know, the Tigers didn't have after De'Eric Hollowell left. And, you know,
But he also can be a patient runner, and he can look for holes. And if our line does gel together, then maybe, like I said, there'll be enough holes that he can be patient and sneak through them and get some hard yards in between the tackles as well.
Again, the first scrimmage is here on the 6th of August against Owensboro Catholic. The next week it's Owensboro. Then the first 2 home games are Christian County and Madisonville North Hopkins. Madisonville back on the schedule now, so they'll be here at Tiger Stadium. And Gary, an interesting fact this season, of the 10 teams on the Tiger football schedule this year, 7 have new head coaches.
Well, I just think that the pressure is so great at so many schools that I think you're going to see this become more the norm, where they're going to move. You're going to go 5 years, try to either move up, down a ladder. Well, not trying to move down, but you may end up moving down the ladder. The money, I think, is going to get more, and I think that you're going to see a more transient type of coach. Now, I think we won't here. We have a unique situation with Will Barnes, but I think in a lot of these places, like Murray, to me, Murray now looks like a destination. They got a coach from Union City, and interestingly enough, Union City is a team that had good success against Mayfield.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably one of the reasons they hired him is, you know, he was able to beat Mayfield when they played those Union City matchups. I think you're going to see a lot more coaching movement, and I think it's going to be different than the coach be there for 15, 20 years in the community.
Yeah, the only teams that kept their coaches from last year are Hopkinsville. Craig Clayton is still there. Mayfield and Union County. Everybody else has a new head coach this year.
And this is the last ride for the Mayfield coach?
That's what I've kind of heard, that maybe this is the last year, and they had a lot of kids take advantage of that extra year of schooling to come back. So Mayfield looks like it's really loading up this year for another run at a state championship.
It's Mayfield. Of course, they had a lot of kids take advantage of a second redshirt year.
Yeah, they have a bunch of people come back, so they're going to be pretty good. Look at the schedule. I think Crittenden County is going to be pretty good this year. But I'll tell you, of the coaching changes we saw, one of the biggest surprises, at least to me, was Sean Thompson leaving Crittenden County to go to Paducah Tillman.
I think that's going to help them.
Was that a situation of he knew the well was dry and get while the getting is good?
Well, I don't know. I think Crittenden County is going to be pretty decent this
Yeah.
year, and I think they've got some kids coming up.
Yeah, I think it's more that Tillman just must have been the opportunity he could not turn down. I think it was more a positive opinion of Tillman rather than an indictment on Crittenden. I mean, Tillman historically
But he's
is
a Crittenden guy, isn't he?
Yes.
But sometimes you want that challenge, and maybe he's just the guy that said, I want that challenge.
So football season almost upon us. Again, just 2 weeks away. That's kind of difficult to believe. But after last year, the schedule kind of got rearranged and reworked and changed several times. So hopefully this year, no COVID cancellations, and we just roll through a season.
Absolutely. I think everyone's ready to have a good 10-game season and really see that your playoff life and your schedule is as comparable to past seasons as possible.
Gary Goodacre and Chris George are with us on the Sideline Report today. And Chris, I can't let you go without asking you about the UK football team coming up. And the word out of Lexington is that the Penn State transfer, Will Levis, is the guy at quarterback for UK this season.
Todd, you don't bring him in if you don't plan to play him. And I have a lot of concerns. I know people are in love with that rocket arm that he seems to have. I'm just unsure, but getting some quarterback play could be the difference in a great season in Lexington and just a good season. I think no matter what, this team is a 7-5 team, but this team could be another 10-2, maybe even 11-1 type team if we got somebody who can get the ball to Wandale, Josh Ali, and take advantage of C-Rod in the backfield. Because that offensive line, I agree with the pundits. I think that may be the best offensive line in the country, and I just said a whole lot. So when you've got two potential first-rounders at tackle in the Rosenthal transfer that just came in from LSU and Kennard returning, those are two potential first-day NFL guys, and you just moved your all-SEC guard to center. That tells me what Mark Stoops thinks of his offensive line. And if we can just get somebody with a little bit of accuracy and stretch the field just a little bit, I think it could be a special season in Lexington.
Here's my thought about Levis being from Penn State is we played Penn State in the Citrus Bowl, I believe. Is that correct? Where we won that. And I was very impressed with their quarterback. Was it McSorley? Now, makes me wonder, now, is that just him, or does Penn State really coach these guys up? Because if Levis is close to McSorley in toughness and football smarts, I'll take him. I thought McSorley was quite the college player.
McSorley played the Citrus Bowl with a broken foot. He broke his foot and came back in.
Yes. I mean, now, I've never been a big James Franklin guy, but if they've got something going on up there like that, and he could at least, and he was pretty serviceable when they had to get him in for injury, who knows? Maybe he is the guy. But with the tight ends we have and two feature receivers, I don't think he's going to have to do much early. I think he's just going to be able to give it to Rodriguez and smoke. And, I mean, this is going to be some good football. 24 points is going to win a lot of games for this team, and I can see this team scoring 24 points on a lot of people.
Yeah, the defense is solid. Got a few questions up front on the line right now that need to be answered. A little bit thin.
We're a little thin at corner.
And very thin at corner. But, solid up front. Like you said, I think if they can get to 24, I'll say I'll give them a puncher's chance to win every game.
All right, so there you heard it. Chris George says they will win every game. Chris, you heard that.
No, he did not.
Selective editing.
It'll sound that way when we actually do the show. We have to run it through editing, and then it'll air later. But I do like Kentucky's chances this year, though. They brought in the new offensive coordinator. They brought in this quarterback from Penn State, and they had some good quarterbacks already in house, I thought. So if this guy comes in and just becomes the guy, well, then my brain thinks, well, he must be pretty good then.
That's what you want. You want a guy I mean, we really don't like having, this guy. I mean, you want a one, and you want it to be an obvious one, and then everything works from there. So that's what I'm hoping for.
This is the Sideline Report on 1580, 103.3 WPKY, Princeton, Kentucky. About to wrap things up, but Chris, anything else you want to get out there before we get out of here today?
One last thing I got is back to where we started today, which was with the Oklahoma and Texas news. It'll be a Big Four if those two happen to leave the Big 12, because the Big 12 will no longer be a Power 5. It'll be a Power 4.
Well, Texas was a big part of the Big 12, which only has 10 teams, I think, anyway, so it's all confusing.
Right.
You could go back to the Big 8, and they could actually use that number because it's not being used by anyone else.
All right, Gary.
And then the Big 8 will make it a power group of 7 instead of a group of 6.
Oh. All right, Gary, your final thoughts?
Basically, I guess we just need to wrap up. We got a lot of fall sports coming. I'm looking forward to hearing you get the coaches in for the fall sports, because before you know it, soccer, volleyball, it's all coming.
All right. Thank you guys for coming on the show this morning. Chris, thanks for getting up early and being on with us.
Anytime.
That is Chris George joining us from Las Vegas. Gary is a little shorter commute today. He's right across the desk from me. So, Gary, thanks for coming in and being on the show.
You're welcome.
That is Gary Goodacre and Chris George. That's going to wrap up the Sideline Report for this Thursday. This is Todd Griffin of WPKY Radio and YourSportsEdge.com. You've been listening to the Sideline Report on 1580, 103.3 WPKY.
WPKY Princeton. Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. With coronavirus cases in the U.S. tripling in 2 weeks, according to Johns Hopkins University, President Biden again says he's frustrated that some people who can get coronavirus vaccines refuse. As for so-called breakthrough cases in people who are fully vaccinated,